Welcome to another episode of The Latest with Maya. Today, I am so excited to get to talk with author Michael Connelly. Michael is a prolific author and executive producer. His book series, The Lincoln Lawyer, was a movie and is now a hit series on Netflix. His Harry Bosch books were adapted into Bosch, the long standing series on Amazon Prime, and Bosch Legacy's third season will be premiering in the spring. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm so excited to be talking with you.
Well, thanks for having me on.
So let's get started. First of all, I just want to say how much I love your work, and The Lincoln Lawyer is one of my all-time favorite shows. So,
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm very happy and proud of Lincoln Lawyer. I think I can't take a lot of credit for it, but I think they've done a great job.
yeah. Um, yeah, so where do you find inspiration for your books, and how do you find ongoing story arcs for your book series?
Well, I kind of feel like I'm a fisherman. I'm always throwing out a net, hoping to catch something. And what I mean by that is excuse me, spend a lot of time with the kind of people I write about. So I have a lot of friends who are homicide detectives from the police department, or more of them are retired than active. And I also spend a lot of time with lawyers, attorneys. That would include, Mickey Howard's a defense attorney, but I also know prosecutors and I know a few judges. So I try to cover the whole gambit of the justice system. And then when I'm with these people, I just want them to talk to me and tell me about their lives, and usually what inspires them, they'll tell a story about something that it was like a case or a person that was meaningful to them. And I hear it in their voice, and somehow that is the point of inspiration for me. I'm really inspired by people telling me stories. So it's not me reading an interesting story in a newspaper or watching Dateline or something like that. It's usually someone in the field that I'm writing about telling me a story that connects to them personally. And then I start seeing, like, I can make that connect to Mickey Haller, or I can make that connect to Harry Bosch or Renee Ballard. And it kind of goes from there.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. So which author do you consider to be the gold standard when it comes to storytelling and developing your characters?
Well, the one that influenced me the most, so I would give him the gold standard, was Raymond Chandler. And he's been gone a long time, more than 60 years, but his books hold up over time. He wrote about Los Angeles, and he described it in such a way that books that he wrote in the 30s and 40s and 50s stand the test of time. And that's really, to me, when it comes to writing, that's the test of whether something's a classic or not. Whether, for example, Raymond Chandler wrote a book called The Little Sister, and his descriptions of Los Angeles that came out in 1949. So his descriptions of Los Angeles somehow are realistic today. He captured this essence of the city. So times have changed, and the world has changed, and technology has changed, but at the heart of Los Angeles, that the heart is still the same, and he captured it. And when I read his books when I was 19, that's when I decided to become a writer, because I loved reading mystery and crime stuff. Um, but his elevated it to a level of what I considered art, because of his prose, the way he wrote, and the way he got to the heart of the matter, and his descriptions of people and place of Los Angeles.
Oh wow. Um, So, what is your all-time favorite novel?
Wow, all-time favorite?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I'll go with because it meant a lot to me, but help put me on the path. I'll say The Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which I read that long before I read Raymond Chandler. But it's kind of a classic American novel, and it has kind of like a classic um, theme to it, and that is someone willing to sacrifice greatly, put himself in danger, but even put his family in danger in order to do the thing he knows is right, to do the right thing. And that's what taps into everybody. We all want to, if we ever get into a high stakes situation where we have to make a decision to either step up or step back, to do the right thing or to be quiet, we all hope we do the right thing. And I think that book embodies that with the character of Atticus Finch, the lawyer. And,
Yeah.
so I read that when I was 13. And at that time, I wasn't even thinking about being a writer. I was thinking about being an architect. But then when I switched to being a writer many years later, I wrote The Lincoln Lawyer. And I always thought when I was writing Mickey Haller that he would be a modern day Atticus Finch, a guy who, defends the accused, but when the chips are down and the stakes are high, he does the right thing.
Yeah. Wow, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird is one of my favorite books too.
And also a great movie.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So The Lincoln Lawyer has been turned into a movie and series, like I said, and Bosch is a long-running series. Were there any challenges to adapting your books to the screen?
Yes and no. I mean, the key in Hollywood, I think, is surround yourself with smart people who know how to do it. Like I write books, that's my main thing. And my books are very internal. When you read my books, you're inside Mickey's head, you're inside Harry Bosch's head. And that's the challenge because you can't say any of that when you go to a script. Movies and TVs are a visual medium. And so character is revealed by what people say and what they do on screen, not what they're thinking. And that's the part I love about writing books. I can tell you what they're thinking. And so I have what they're thinking, what they say, and what they do. I have these three great things that I can manipulate when I'm writing a book. When you go to a script or you go to a TV show, you only have two of those three. So for me, that transition is very hard. I've written some of the scripts on both of the shows, but I often get rewritten by people who are better at it than me. Script writers, screenwriters, and I understand that because I'm so deeply entrenched in writing books that that challenge personally for me was to transition into being a screenwriter. As far as the overall challenges of the show, excuse me, I I surrounded myself with people who love the books, love the characters, and what were dedicated to capturing the essence of these characters and the stories in their scripts. So they weren't wandering off and saying, "Oh, we can do this better by making Mickey drive a, whatever, something else." They were loyal to the books, and of course, changes have to be made because of the reasons I was just talking about. You got to expand the story to other characters and make them more fuller characters than they are in my books. So there's challenges along the way, but I felt my luck in Hollywood is based on who I choose to be in business with. And, I do a lot of due diligence and research to make sure when I go into a project with a writer, that writer has the best interests of the book and the characters in mind, not they're going to go off and use my IP, my intellectual property to tell their own stories. That to me is a recipe for disaster, and I've been able to avoid that.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, that's good that you've been able to avoid that.
That's the key.
Um, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I am so interested in like the legal system and everything. So it's yeah, it's so I love the Lincoln Lawyer and it's so interesting to watch that.
Well, what we try to do with that is make it as realistic as possible, and that's a real challenge in itself because in the real world of the legal system, things drag on, and you got to, and it's like really required that you got to keep momentum, in your storytelling. And sometimes, for example, someone will get charged with a crime and they won't go for trial for a year, and we have to find ways of collapsing that or jumping like 1 year later, that kind of stuff. And to do all that, you can do it, but what you're risking is the momentum of the experience of watching or reading, and that's the trick that I think the people involved in the Lincoln Lawyer TV show are really good at.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so who in your life has had the biggest impact on how you choose to live?
The It's funny. I'm going to say my father, and my father was not a reader or a writer. I mean, he was artistic, but more in visual arts. I mean, he designed houses and then built them. He had wanted to be a painter, but that's also a long shot career, and he started having a family, so he went into business with his father, building houses. But the reason he is so inspirational in my life was I came to him when I was 19. I was actually going to school to become an architect and builder. And I read the books by Raymond Chandler, who we talked about earlier, and it changed. Yeah, my whole life pivoted. I suddenly said, I want to write, I want to be a writer. I want to try to do this. And so when I went home to tell my father this, I was braced for like, you can't do that, or, that's such a long shot. You got to go back to school and get a degree where you can make a living for sure, that kind of thing. But instead, he was very accommodating about it, and he had some ideas. And he was the one who told me, if you really want to try to do this, it's a long shot. So, how do you get into the best position to take that long shot? And his idea was I go back and get a journalism degree, and I would get into a newspaper, work for a newspaper, and A, it would teach me how to write. B, if I wanted to write crime novels, I could get on the police beat or the crime beat, and I could see the kind of people that you want to write. I wanted to write about, and I could learn from them. So that's what I did, and I ended up being a newspaper reporter who covered crime and cops for 12 years and courts. And so it was like 12 years of research that prepared me for writing these books. I'm not a lawyer, but I've probably been in more trials than most lawyers because I covered them as a newspaper reporter. So I kind of know how the courts work and the courtroom is run and how judges react and juries react and things like that. So I kind of had this built-in experience before I even wrote the first page of a Lincoln Lawyer book. And I really kind of credit my father for that.
Oh wow. I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I took a street law class when I was in high school, and that is like by far one of my favorite classes I've ever taken.
You said
And
street law?
yeah.
So what was there? What makes street law?
I it was kind of like talking about um like your like civil rights and like kind of when somebody can like I remember specifically there was this one time we were talking about like when like there were different scenarios we had to think like decide if like you actually like police needed a warrant if like something was outside of the house and like I don't know I like vividly remember that and just yeah like
It was like
how
the law before you ever get to a courthouse,
yeah
what cops do. That's a sounds like a pretty good class.
yeah it it is yeah my favorite class I've ever taken and the teacher was the best.
That's cool when you get a class like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so, what is something you have accomplished as an adult that your younger self would be proud of?
Um, I think raising a kid. I have a daughter who's 27, and when you have a child, you don't know what's going to happen. You have no experience at it, obviously. I mean, I grew up in a big family, so I had younger siblings, and at times took care of them. But you want if you become a parent, it changes your world, it changes your life, and your goal is to help this young new person become a good citizen of the world. And I think my daughter really is. She's very conscientious and caring, and so I'm really proud of her. And so I guess that kind of throws back on me, like, hey, I did that. I helped make her who she is.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Um, so what is the biggest obstacle you've overcome?
My life.
Yeah.
Probably, it's weird, I'm actually an introverted, shy person, and I think you find that pretty common in writers. I'm very happy to spend months at a time by myself in a room, just me and my laptop, and I write. And the irony is that when you publish a book, if you have any level of success at all, you suddenly have to tell people about it. You have to become a public person. Like I'm doing an interview with you, and I go on book tours and I speak in front of large crowds. And this is so not my nature. My nature is to be by myself. Um, Especially as a writer, I'm always in my own head thinking about stuff. Like every time my head hits the pillow at night, I'm thinking about what I'm writing. And it's a joy. It's like I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's interesting. I usually have one book come out a year, and as I did a few weeks ago, and then suddenly I become this public person who's doing interviews, and I travel the country and do bookstore events, and it's so very much unlike who I really am.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely get that. I'm more of an introvert too. Yeah. Um yeah,
So
there's
it's and now here look what you do. You do these interviews and things. So you can learn to do it. You just kind of secretly are thinking like, don't these people really know who I am? And I'm not that interesting. Why am I talking to people? Why am I standing in front of people in a bookstore? And it's a weird form of whatever you want to call it, art or entertainment, writing books, how so much analysis, they get reviewed, they get discussed. And then you go out on the road and you can't really talk about it because you don't want to give stuff away. So you have to find other things to talk about it. And usually you're talking about yourself, which is so antithetical to being an introvert.
yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I am pop culture obsessed and I go in stages of shows that I cannot stop watching. Is there a show that you are currently obsessed with?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I'm a big consumer of serialized television. And I really think the best show on out there is called Slow Horses. I don't know if you've seen that. It's on Apple and it's about spies in England, but it's really about these people and this little group of people that are kind of castaways in an office because they've been classified as slow horses. They've all made mistakes, so it's kind of a ragtag group of misfits, and they kind of stumble around but solve spy type cases. And there's 4 seasons of it. Fourth season just came out about a month ago, and it's just so good. It's got Gary Oldman, so anything he's in is really good. But
Yeah.
that's my recommendation for a good show to become obsessed with.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I haven't watched it yet, but I've been meaning to, so I need to go start it.
Check it out. If you like my stuff, I
Yes.
think you'll like that. And those are Slow Horses is based on a series of books like Lincoln Lawyer, and it also helps that I know the writer, uh, and I think his books are great, and this is a wonderful adaptation of his books.
Oh, that's so cool. Um, so if you had a warning label, what would yours say?
I mean, for me personally,
Yes.
um, caution: being with this guy may be very boring because he's an introvert. He doesn't talk a whole lot.
I like that one.
Yeah, most of my friends and family are used to me. If you're going to hang out with me, there won't be a lot of conversation, but you want to have be comfortable with somebody. Some people are just so unnerved when they're with somebody who doesn't talk a lot, but I don't talk a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Well, I'm like, I keep clearing my voice here, my throat here, because I haven't said anything to anybody all day. That's the way I am.
yeah. I totally get that. There are some days I just am like, I don't want to, um, like when I don't have interviews, there are some days where I'm just like, I don't want to talk to anybody today. I just want to be in my own world.
Me too.
Um, so if you could eliminate one thing from your daily schedule, what would it be and why?
Wow. Good question. Well, I live in LA. If I could eliminate driving, I think about all the time I would save. But I work at home, so that's amazing that I have a job where I work at home. But because I'm involved in these TV shows, I often have to go and watch filming, or I go to the writing room where they're putting together the scripts. And during COVID, it was all done by Zoom, but it's not that way anymore. So I have to get in my car. I mean, I used to think I had the best job ever, kind of like you. I work from home. But then when I had this success in TV, I had to start going out in the world. And driving in LA traffic is not a fun thing. That would be a good thing to take it out of my life.
Mm, yeah. I I love LA. It's one of my favorite places in the world. I go there once a year. I try to. Um and I go with my family, and my mom she always jokes that she's strange because she actually doesn't mind driving in LA. But it's because I don't know, she likes driving and she finds it so peaceful. So she whenever somebody says they don't like driving in LA, she's like, I really don't mind it.
Yeah, but you're saying you only come once a year.
Yeah.
Tell her to come here and do it every day for a year. See if it changes her mind.
Yeah. I mean, that my mom has said that probably would be different if we actually lived there, then she would get not liking driving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um So, do you have any irrational fears?
Um, I'd have to think about that. My quick answer is no. No, I mean, it's weird. I fly a lot because like I'm on book tours and have a lot of family in other places that I try to visit. So I'm not afraid of flying at all. But if I'm in a tall building and I look down, I really kind of get some kind of fear, like something in my stomach starts churning, like when I'm looking down. And also, it can be like a movie or something where you a character is like looking down off the edge of a building or something. That's kind of stuff that scares me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, so what small things bring you joy on a daily basis?
Oh, all kinds of stuff. I mean, the writing a book is like climbing a mountain. Um, it can be a slog, especially when you're starting out and I got 0 pages and I need 400 pages and I won't get to 400 till maybe 10 months from now. So you gotta find little things that make you keep going. And so like a good piece of dialogue I've written or just I don't outline my book so often. I'm writing when I come up with an idea like this will be a good surprise move or this will be a good switchback. Those things really make your day and allow you to get to the next day. So they're like little victories, but they're important because you got to string a bunch of those together to get to an end of a book. And so these are things that, like, I'll be sitting there and I'll be very happy. It'll be a little moment of joy. I don't share it with anybody. No one knows about it except myself because I'm sitting there in my room with it's just me and my laptop.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. Um, so I love inspiring and motivational quotes, and this week my favorite quotation is surround yourself with people who fight for you in rooms you aren't in. Is there a quotation that has inspired you lately?
Well, the lately I'm not sure about, but I write about a guy named Harry Bosch who's motivated by this ideal, and his quote is "Everybody counts or nobody counts." And it's about being fair. It's about doing unto others as you would have them do to you. And so I've kind of built this 30-year career. The Lincoln Lawyer came 20 years into my career, but I've been writing about Harry Bosch the whole time. And I think because of that quote, because of that's what he believes, he remains really interesting to me and someone that I will continue to write about. So it's not a more recent quote. It was in an early one of my early book that I wrote, but I think it's a good message for the world.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah, I think that's a great one.
Thanks.
Yeah. Um, well, that was my final question for you. I have just had so much fun talking with you. I so appreciate your taking the time to join me today. So thank you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And that's a wrap on today's edition of the latest with Maya.